We're at the top of the hour. Cassiana, do you want to restart the recording or should we just go?
It's all set to go, but thank you, Scott.
Okay, thank you. All right. Welcome to the GitLab 12.6 kickoff. My name is Scott Williamson. I am the VP of Product at GitLab, and I am pleased to be your MC today and to represent the great work that's going to be done by all the PMs and designers and testers and all the teams behind all the work we're doing here. What we're looking at here is a kickoff page that's auto-generated. It's in our handbook. It's about.gitlab.com/direction/kickoff. You can check this out, and each month this will renew. So all the items on here, I'll scroll down a bit, are auto-generated when it has a 12.6 label in our GitLab project. You can also see there are videos in each section. So if you're interested in a deeper dive in any one of these stages or categories, you can click on those and watch those. You can also click into each relevant issue here. It's organized by section and then stage. And the way we'll run through this is we'll have section leaders present a high-level overview. There's far too much to cover line by line, so we'll give you the broad strokes of what we're going to do in 12.6. And then you can go down for deeper detail if you wish. So keep in mind, we plan ambitiously here. This is our target for 12.6. Please don't view this as a firm commitment. The things that ship in 12.6 will probably vary from what we're going to talk about today, but we'll do our best to deliver the very most out of this that we can. So now let me introduce our speakers. We have Eric Brinkman for Dev. We have Orit Golowinski for CICD. We have Kenny Johnston for Ops, David DeSanto for Secure, and Josh Lambert for Enablement. So we'll go in that order. I will stop sharing and we'll pass it over to Eric. Eric, over to you.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get going. Okay. So my name's Eric. I'm the product director for the dev section. The dev section consists of the first three stages of the DevOps lifecycle, which is manage, plan, and create. And I'm excited to tell you about some great things coming in GitLab 12.6 in those three stages. So let's go ahead and get going. In the manage stage, we're focusing on two big themes: authentication and authorization improvements and compliance enhancements. For authentication, we're continuing to invest deeply into SAML SSO and GitLab.com with a focus on quality testing and provider availability. As you can see in this issue that I'm currently sharing, we're prioritizing SCIM support using Okta, which is one of the most popular identity providers in the marketplace. For authorization, we'll be bringing some enhancements for admins to GitLab.com. The first is the ability to list connected user identities for SAML SSO. If you're a self-managed customer, you already have this ability because users belong to the instance. So we'll be ensuring that .com admins also have a similar experience because it's a shared environment. We're also making two big improvements to group managed accounts on GitLab.com. The first is an admin toggle to allow group owners to disable personal projects for group managed accounts. This will reduce the risk of projects being forked into a personal namespace and then shared. The second is the ability to map existing GitLab.com users to group managed accounts. What this will do is it'll help admins reconcile the case where a user from the organization might have previously signed up for a GitLab.com account using that organization email and help reconcile those users back into the group managed account. Our second theme in manage is compliance enhancements. And we're finally excited to be iterating on providing a compliance dashboard at the group level. This will help admins understand what's going on in their GitLab instance and what activities in that instance may or may not be meeting their compliance policies. We're starting with an MVC, but we'll iterate over time to make this dashboard much more valuable to our admins. We'll also be providing the ability to list an inventory for all personal access tokens and SSH credentials in a single view. This will help you answer questions like, what type of credentials do I have in my account? Who is the user, how it's scoped, and the last time this key was used. Something that is really important as admins enforce access to their GitLab instance. And lastly, something that many customers have been asking us for, we're going to enforce entropy requirements for new user passwords. We'll be doing this based off of NIST guidance, and we're really excited that this is finally coming in GitLab 12.6. Moving on to the plan stage. In the plan stage, we continue to schedule huge improvements to both portfolio and project management. We'll be focusing on adding burn-up charts to our milestones page. Burn-up charts typically give you the work that's left to do versus the time left to do it, and can typically indicate a little bit better idea of if scope was added to a milestone. We're also planning some milestone improvements, such as the ability to have multiple milestones for an issue or merge request, and then the ability to define those milestone types. This will help you in the instance where you want to say attach a milestone to a deployment and also a milestone for the sprint that it was delivered in. And while we're still talking about milestones, we're planning to add milestones in the roadmap view, which will add much more value to that view than exists today to help you understand how your epics are lining up to your milestone dates. And lastly, for roadmaps, we're planning on continuing the work to expand epics in the roadmap view so that you can understand your epic hierarchy. This should allow users to track and manage at the portfolio level much more efficiently than the existing experience. And the last thing to highlight in the plan stage, and something I'm personally very excited about, is our continued work on requirements management. In 12.6, we'll be continuing our user research spike around requirements management, in addition to launching our MVC, which is the ability to create a first-class requirement right inside of GitLab. Moving on to the create stage, the big theme for 12.6 is diff improvements. If you're a user of our suggestions feature in a merge request, it can be hard to understand the diff between lines, especially in the case where that diff is really hard to find. So we'll be adding word diff highlighting to help users more quickly identify the diff between lines on the suggestions feature. And from a performance perspective, we're also going to be working on two very nice improvements to diff loading. The first, and while we already do progressively load diffs, the problem is they're not interactive. And so we're planning on making diffs interactive while the rest of that diff progressively loads. And lastly, we're going to be reducing the data sent back for the diff by only sending either the parallel or inline view based on your setting. This essentially cuts the amount of data sent back for the diff in half. And the last thing I'd like to highlight for the dev section today is a quick improvement to our Web IDE, which is an enhancement to automatically stage all changes in the Web IDE. We've received some feedback that staging changes in the Web IDE is a little bit confusing, even though it technically follows the normal Git pattern, which allows you to kind of select which files you want staged or not. Most people who use the Web IDE and are touching multiple files want all of those changes to be staged and committed to their branch. So we'll be automatically staging all those changes and making some UI improvements to streamline that workflow. And as always, there's a lot of things I didn't get a chance to talk about. So go ahead and check out those videos that Scott mentioned and let us know if anything is exciting to you in the issues. Thanks so much. Back to you, Scott.
All right, Eric, thanks a lot. Let's move on to Orit for CICD.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So my name is Orit Gowinski, and I'm the Senior Product Manager for Release. I'm going to share my screen, so just one second, bear with me. Okay, hopefully it's the right screen. The CICD section is comprised from verify, package, and release. And we have mutual goals within the stage. So I'll be kind of jumping around and showing our different themes that we want to accomplish. So the first theme that we want to accomplish is the single application for CICD. And we're working to expand our user base by supporting additional package managers. So in this upcoming release, we're going to introduce support for NuGet packages, which is this issue right here, which will actually add support for our .NET users. We're also adding the capability to add ability to associate feature flags with contextual issues, which is in the release section. And what this will actually do is users who are using both GitLab issues and GitLab feature flags will be able to see the association of a feature flag on an issue or vice versa. So it's this issue over here. Our next theme is multi-platform support. So in this release, we're happy to announce the Windows Shared Runners beta. So the runner team has been working really, really hard to get this out, and we're super excited that we're finally at the beta stage. So this is a really, really long haul, and we're happy to release it. In addition, our CI team will be delivering support for CI job definition outside repositories, which will actually make it possible to configure the project so that the GitLab CI YAML file is outside of the repository. The reason for this is for open source projects that are building packages or distributions that do not necessarily have access to the specific repo, this is really useful. Another feature that we're working on is adding UI support to merge requests with deployment context. So this is actually over in this issue. The idea here is when a deployment is triggered, no data is currently saved to link the deployment to the merge request. And new deployments will usually overwrite the deployment status of the old merge request when actually the first deployment is the one that's really, really interesting. So this feature will actually support this both for environments and deployments in GitLab and also external deployments. So this is a really big change. And one of the most significant features that we're going to be working on in this release is in the verify stage and continuous integration, which is child-parent pipelines. Child-parent pipelines will allow a parent pipeline to trigger a child pipeline. This will allow the child pipelines to continue forward without waiting for unrelated jobs to finish, and the configurations will be distributed to child pipelines. We believe that this will improve performance and collisions, and are really psyched about delivering this. Our next theme is speedy, reliable pipelines. So again, we have a mix here of all the different stages here. The first one is limit pipeline concurrency using named semaphores, which is, I think, our most popular issue, which is upvoted both internally and by the community. And this will limit the deployment of any job using the same lock. So if you're using, for example, a deployment for a physical environment or anything that you actually need to limit, this will give you the ability to do it. Okay. So additional to that, we have two new features that are coming up for code coverage. And this is actually requires some showing off of the new UI. So the first one is making code coverage more comprehensive. So the testing team is adding a graph that will show code coverage changes over time. And while we really understand that the current merge request graphs are useful, it's really much better to see it over time, and we think this will give a lot of value to the customers. And another one is adding a full code coverage report, which extends the report that we currently have, but it shows it for the entire code and not only for a significant code that was just changed. So we're really, really excited about these features. Trying to open it up. So for the sake of time, I'm going to save time, but please go ahead and look into the issue to check out the graphs themselves. And our last thing that we're going to work on in this release is doing powerful things easily. So as a move toward natively supporting the hypercloud deployments, we're going to be adding built-in wrappers for AWS deployments, which can be also checked out under the release stage. And the idea here is that we realize that deploying to the cloud is a super common task. And we're going to be providing base images that are reliable and work well within GitLab, which will make your life and job much easier. In addition to that, we're going to be adding assets to release via the GitLab CI YAML file to complete what we started in the previous milestone, allowing users to create releases directly from the GitLab CI YAML file without having to go through the API. We're also going to be optimizing the container registry garbage collection algorithm in package, which is going to help our enterprise customers who have more than 1 terabyte of data. In the past, this operation could take anywhere between a few hours to even a few days in order to run and complete. And that was depending on the amount of storage you had. And this optimization will reduce this to about 4 hours. So we're really, really excited about this release. There's a ton more content that I didn't discuss, but I invite you to go through the videos and through the issues. And I'll pass you off to Kenny.
Cool, thanks, Orit. Yeah, if you don't mind stopping sharing, I will share my screen. And awesome work working off of themes. I feel like I need to do that for mine. All right, my name is Kenny Johnson. I cover the ops section. The ops section is comprised of the configure and monitor stages. Our aim in the ops section is to make common operational tasks that developers need to perform easy. So we'll start in the configure stage, and the videos are great. They also have links to the planning issues, which give you all the kind of discussion that the teams had around why we chose these issues specifically. In the configure stage, we're going to continue some follow-up work from our, in 12.5, we are adding the ability to create an Amazon EKS cluster directly in the GitLab UI. So we're going to be doing some follow-up UI improvements from that effort. We're also going to be working on improving the way that you can customize the configuration of your GitLab to manage apps. Again, something we started with some kind of base primitives in 12.5, but we'll be adding to in 12.6. And then also our ongoing efforts to make Auto DevOps smarter. Auto DevOps is our kind of default CICD pipeline that you can automatically have your projects use. We're going to make sure that it doesn't fail in cases where it really shouldn't even attempt to run. We're also going to be focusing on our serverless architecture support and moving that from minimal to viable this release. So we're going to be doing that through some use of templates. We're going to bundle some default templates that both integrate a serverless application as well as a front end. So kind of have that combined front end, back end using a serverless architecture, which will help developers new to serverless get started. We're also going to be adding some improved documentation around how to debug your serverless applications. And then lastly, also giving you the ability to supply a standard domain so you can utilize the same Kubernetes cluster with a Knative installation across multiple projects and instances, or multiple projects and developers. In the monitor stage, we are going to be working, continuing our support on moving our logging experience from minimal to viable. So that will include things like allowing you to search the logs. Once we've worked in 12.5 to allow you to install Elasticsearch as a managed app. So we're going to start providing a UI so that you can search those logs in that aggregated fashion, as well as additional support for the kind of log tailing experience that you might want, where you want to see the live logs come through. We're adding the ability to not just drill down into the environment and the pod, but also a specific container and see the logs for that specific container. We're also working to enhance the views that developers can get into their environments. Today, when you look at the Environments tab and you see multiple pods that that application is deployed to in your Kubernetes cluster, you get a series of these kind of bubble chart, but the bubbles are typically, well, at present only imply the percent of deployment. So when you're doing progressive deployments, it'll tell you which ones are on new versus old code as it gets deployed. But we're going to add the ability to visualize different things like specific metrics and whether or not that specific pod is healthy on that metric. And then lastly, we're going to continue our error tracking integration. So we're starting to add an error detail page within GitLab that gives you details about a specific error. And we're also going to add something really cool, which is unique to GitLab, which is the ability to connect the suspect commit or the first seen commit directly to that error detail to really help with error triage and investigation. But it's kind of a unique thing that GitLab can do by having everything under one roof and in one single data store. So those are some of the issues that I'm really excited about in the ops section. Again, as everyone else has said, check out the videos. You can also dive down into the specific links. We love feedback about what we're planning. And that's it. I'll hand it back to Scott.
Thank you, Kenny. Let's move on to David DeSanto for Secure and Defend. David, over to you.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm David DeSanto, Director of Product for Secure and Defend. First, let's talk about Secure. For Secure, I will say we also have a theme in this release, so I guess that leaves Kenny as the only one without a theme so far. It happens. So our focus is on our stewardship towards the open source community and making sure everybody can contribute as well as everybody can be secure. So starting with stack analysis, as you can see here, we're bringing 2 of our stack analysis scanners down to core. The first one is ESLint. That is a JavaScript framework stack analysis tool, and then Node.js scan, which by its name is obviously for Node.js. On the dynamic analysis side, the majority of the items are a carryover from 12.5. I do want to highlight the big one that is coming out in 12.6, and that's the first one here on the board. This is focused on helping you see your total security at the group level on the security dashboard. And if we kind of click over here, the big key with this solution is we're doing collegiate scoring, allowing you to see the health by repo and by project, and you can see the scoring right here. On the dashboard, it's actually going to be located on the right. If I zoom in on this, you can see that each of the projects have their own expandable. So by default, it's collapsed, and you can see the score for that project. But when you expand it, you can start to drill down in. You can see these 9 projects have a D score. So going back, that means they've got at least one high or unknown vulnerability that needs to be addressed. And then again, you can click right on that and drill directly into the project and understand what the issue is. On the composition analysis side, a lot of really great things coming out as well. The couple I wanted to highlight for you, the first is the Python dependency scanning. So it'll support more text files, not just the requirements.txt file that's common with Python. Also, we are getting into supporting license compliance for PHP. So that'd be the composer.lock. And then finally, bringing dependency scanning to Gradle projects in Java. So those are a lot of great things that are coming out for Secure. If you go to the release page that Scott and everybody's been talking about, there's videos there highlighting those items in more detail. For the Defend side, there is no major items coming out. Their team is currently working on long-term goals, and to kind of show you those, you can see those here on our board. The first one's focused on bringing threat prevention or IPS or IDS to the container. So that issue there is going to outline that all for you. You can dive into that if you're curious. And then the final one is focused on container network security. And again, the team is working on bringing those out in a later release in this quarter, but they're heads down working on these direction items, and that's why they show up here on the release page as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Scott. But if you do have any questions, feel free to check it out and comment on the issues.
Thanks, David. Josh Lambert will cover enablement and will bring us home. Josh, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. So I'll be talking through our enablement stage. Our enablement stage is primarily focused on a lot of the operational details of GitLab. We're a newer stage, so it's taking a second to introduce us here. So we're working on things like installing GitLab, maintaining GitLab, making sure GitLab has a DR solution in place in case needed, or a local node for multinational companies to improve performance in multiple areas, as well as also ensuring it's performant and that we have a robust API for integrations, and also that we have a great search experience. That's a lot of what we do here. We have a few main things working on this release. In particular, one of them is performance improvements. So one of the topics that we've been working on for a while now is moving away from Unicorn, which is a per process model, and switching over to Puma, which is multi-threaded. We're getting very close to finishing this up. We've been working to getting Puma running on GitLab.com for some time now. It's actually running on our Canary services, and we're seeing a little bit of a performance decrease right now. And so we're kind of working through that, getting more details, but we are seeing a pretty significant benefit in memory reduction. So that's great. We should try and do a little more diligence here on this performance difference we're seeing between the Puma and non-Puma nodes as we continue to improve here. And once we have a good handle on that, we're also doing a number of things to lay the groundwork for bringing Puma to all of our customers. It's already available in Omnibus as an experimental feature. We're working to identify good defaults so we can recommend them to our customers, and then also making sure it's available in our Kubernetes deployment charts as well. So that's a great work there on Puma. It'll also enable some really interesting new features going forward, like WebSockets as well. So really excited about getting that across the finish line here. Another key area that we're working on to improve our performance in the future here is moving to pushes 11 and 12. Right now we support 9.6 and 10, but we're pretty far behind the overall Postgres release cycle. And we're really looking forward to taking advantage of some of the new benefits of PG11, in particular, the major improvements to partitioning. This will enable a number of performance improvements across the GitLab instance as a whole. And we're trying to drive more quickly to supporting this. And so the goal here is that if you look at our timeline is to actually have PG11 as the minimum required Postgres version in GitLab 13.0, which is our next major release in May. The reason is that we don't want to have multiple code paths within GitLab. And by setting PG11 as the minimum, we can take advantage of all these great new features in that release. Please take a look at this issue. If you have some concerns, let us know. But also in the plan that you can see is a release schedule going forward to make sure we stay more up to date here with Postgres releases, as both they and us are on yearly major release cycles. Other major improvements also are going on to our API. We're working on bringing the ability to have key set-based pagination to our API. Right now we support what's known as offset-based pagination. And so if you're utilizing this essentially as you start to make more and more queries deeper into the offsets, like page 10, page 100, it starts to get a lot slower and have a bigger impact on your GitLab instance. And so we're now going to start offering a key set-based pagination, which can offer constant time operation, no matter how deep you're going. And so improving performance across the board for a lot of our users. And we'll be starting to encourage users for deeper offset-based pagination by essentially instituting a limit that's configurable in the instance, right around 10,000 is the proposal right now, to essentially stop using offset-based pagination, reduce the impact, and switch over to key set-based pagination here in the future, probably around 12.7, 12.8 timeframe. So stay tuned there. That's a great improvement. We're also working to improve our coverage, providing support for commit ancestry and listing project services in the API as well. Finally, on the geo side, we're making a number of improvements here. We're making improvements around DR in particular, with having planned failover testing internally for our instances to make sure we understand the experience and the great experience there as well as we improve it going forward. We'll be doing that by also starting to support pausing replication and maintenance mode here, as well as also the addition of a geo into our GitLab provisioner. This is the Terraform scripts that we use to test internally our upgrades. So we'll catch any issues that might occur. And we also plan to offer this to all of our customers as official GitLab provisioning Terraform scripts here in the near future. And so everyone can take advantage of them as opposed to having to write and maintain their own. So some pretty key improvements here. The last one for Geo is also the addition of a framework. This is more an internally focused feature, but the idea here is that as our GitLab feature development teams go forth and build new features as they do every single release, as you can see here, we need to make sure that we add support and make it easy for them to make sure the data that they're creating is easy to add into the geo replication and framework. And so right now it's a task that the geo team takes on to add each and every one of these. And so going forward, we'll be adding the support to have a framework that these teams can use so that the first time they implement a feature, it's already baked in easily with support for geo from the get-go. So some great features there. Please take a look at our videos here, Kickoff section for more information. There's a lot more we're doing that's not covered in this Kickoff. And back to you, Scott, to wrap us up.
Thanks, Josh. All right, I don't know about you, but 12.6 looks like it's going to be the best release ever. Thanks to all the speakers for doing such a nice job presenting what we have coming. Thanks to all the teams behind them that are cranking out value for customers every month. And thanks most of all to all of you who took the time to learn about 12.6. Thanks for joining, and we will see you next month. Bye.